joined by Florida Atlantic head women's golf coach Heather Bowie Young. Coach, can you tell me about, how was the fall season for you and your team? And what was it like to pick up the team win at your home invitational in October?
The fall went well overall. We had some ups and downs. Our first tournament, no, sorry, our second tournament, we had a tough week at Vanderbilt, but it was a tough field. It was supposed to be tough, and it was. But I think that actually helped us get the win the next week. So they learned a lot from competing against some of the best players in the country. The field was very strong. There was a lot of West Coast teams, UCLA, Arizona State, and Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss, and so it was a really tough field. But they learned a lot from their competitors. They learned a lot playing a tough golf course, and that helped us win the next week. It's always good to win at home because you have support, and sometimes it's harder because you have expectations because you're at home. So but they played well. They played well as a group. I got a really good performance out of a transfer, Olivia Florence. That was her first time in the lineup, and she did well. They all five really played well, and then Clements won the event. So whenever you have a player win by 10, that's going to help your team.
Nice. So your team begins their spring season in about 10 days, February 5th, at your home invitational. So just tell me, what do you see for your team going into the spring season?
Okay, sorry, Gavin. I have no idea. There's something wrong with my computer, so now I'm on my phone.
No problem.
So sorry. I could start that whole question over again if you want me to.
I'll just go on the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you see for your team going into the spring season, given that, your team begins their spring season in about 10 days?
We do. We're in qualifying right now, and
Okay.
our scores are actually a little bit better than they were in the spring, or sorry, in the fall. So I'm optimistic, but again, it's a tough field. We're starting out with a lot of good teams coming here to see us, but I do think the team is trending pretty well right now. We had some good off-season practices where I kind of tried to make practice hard. Like I made them play alternate shot and just tried to do some things to make them uncomfortable and be competitive at the same time. So I actually feel pretty good about it, but we will see how it goes here in a couple weeks.
And then you host both fall and spring invitational. So for you, what is it like, balancing both your head coaching duties and also being a tournament host?
So luckily I have a lot of help with hosting the tournaments. So in the fall tournament, I actually have a tournament director. His name is TJ Shewart, and he finds the venue. He does a lot of the behind the scenes work. I help, get the field in place, provide like an athletic trainer when we're there, but he does a lot of the tournament preparation in terms of the golf course and getting it marked and hole locations and things like that. The spring event is a little bit more work for me, but the golf course does provide a lot of help. So there's two people in particular, Joe and Jacob, that have done a lot for me just logistically. And now we're in our third year at the same site. So it's a little bit easier when you're just kind of repeating what you did the last year.
So in April, your conference championship will be at Southern Hills in Brooksville, Florida, which is about, 4 hours drive from your campus. So has your team gotten to play Southern Hills? Will they play it, or will they just see it the week of the conference championship?
We will just see it the week of.
Okay.
We did not go in the fall, and I don't think we're even allowed to this. We are allowed to go in the fall, but I think
Okay.
once January 1st hits, you're not allowed to pre-practice, but we
Okay.
will just see it the week of. I think there's pros and cons to both because a lot of times the course plays different in the spring than it does in the fall. But I mean, it is always good to at least lay your eyes on it. We just didn't have the opportunity to do it this fall.
Nice. So tell me about growing up in Oklahoma and how you got started playing golf at age 11.
So I moved to Oklahoma when I was 15. I did start
Okay.
playing at 11 and I was in Delaware.
Okay.
And then when I moved to Oklahoma, what that taught me was how to play in the wind. And if you can play in the wind, you can play when it's not windy. So it was, and I also moved, from a state that didn't have a lot of girls playing and moved to a state where there were a lot of girls and a lot of boys. There was just more competition. So I think both the elements of playing in the wind and just being around more competitive players, like a higher number of competitive players, made me a better golfer.
So what was junior golf like for you growing up?
Junior golf was, I would say, progressive. So when I was like 11, I played mostly in Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania. And then I started to play bigger tournaments. So I did that for like probably 2 or 3 years. And then when I was 14, I played in my first AJGA. And I remember it went terribly. I mean, I just played the worst golf of my life, or of my junior career to that point. And so I learned a lot. And then the next year I just progressively got better. Like my next year was much better. And then the year after that was much better. So and I then was able to play on a college golf team because of my progression, I guess. But it definitely, it just takes some time. Golf is a sport that takes time. There's certainly some people that are more apt to do it. They're gifted, but it takes some time to learn the game. There's so much to learn, it's not just one shot, there's just a lot to learn.
Nice. So I'm a huge Arizona State Sun Devils fan. That's my favorite college. So tell
Yep.
me about your time at Arizona State and what was it like to win back-to-back national championships at Arizona State?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was, it was, it was awesome. Like there's not really any word for it other than that. I mean, we might see some back-to-back champions again, but the teams that I was on, I had some very good teammates that made me a better player. But the first year, I think we won the national championship. It was just stroke play by 19, and the second year by 27. And so, we definitely expected a lot of ourselves, and we put in a lot of effort and put in a lot of work. But we drove each other every day at practice to be better. So I knew that if I could beat half of my teammates, I was going to be pretty good. So we did every day in practice. It was competitive, but it was also fun to go to the course every day and just see how good you could get.
So tell me about transferring to Texas, and at Texas, what was it like to, win the individual national championship?
Yeah, it was certainly a different feeling. But it was also great. I mean, I'm glad I got to experience both. But it was very, very different because when I was at Texas, the team my junior year was very good. We actually finished third at the national championship and missed being in the playoff by 1. But my senior year, we had graduated some players and we weren't as good, and we didn't even make it to the national championship. So I was there as an individual and was really just all about me. It was just me and my coach. And so you're more like playing like a professional golfer. You're just kind of thinking about what you need to do to get ready, what you need to do after the round. You get to eat wherever you want. There's no consensus. And also my grandmother was sick. My grandmother was dying of cancer. And so it was probably good that I was there as an individual because I really wanted to win for her. And so I was able to do that. And I think it almost kind of helped that I was there by myself because I could just kind of lock in and get my own zone. And what was neat was Arizona State actually won the team title that year. And
Okay.
I still was close to that team and that coach. And so after I won, I actually celebrated with them their win in the hotel too. So that was a unique experience that probably not a lot of people know happened, but it did. It was very fulfilling. Like I couldn't have written a better script.
Nice. So what did it mean to you when you earned your tour card for the 2000 season?
It was great. I mean, it was a goal of mine. And it was also a relief because I went to Q school 3 times. So
Yeah.
I graduated in 97 and I got to finals every year, but it didn't seem to get through finals the first 2 times. So the last time when I got through, I would say I was satisfied, but I was almost relieved because it was something I always wanted to do. And I had never really pictured at that point, what am I going to do if this doesn't work out? And so I kind of didn't let myself go there because I didn't want to have a plan B. I just wanted to stick to plan A. And it took a little longer than I had hoped. But I think that's probably why I kept my tour card and didn't have to go back to Q school because it was hard for me to get it the first time.
Nice. Describe your experience getting to represent your country and play on the 2003 Solheim Cup team as a captain's pick.
Yeah, that was it was great. I was it's overwhelming in a good way. But the coolest thing, or what I remember the most, I love playing on teams, loved it. I started as a basketball player and a soccer player before I was ever a golfer. So I love playing on teams. I had a college teammate on my team for the Solheim Cup. Wendy Ward and I were teammates, actually 2 teammates. She and I were teammates at Arizona State. Kelly Keeney and I were teammates at Texas. So that was nice. And I played in the first Solheim Cup in Sweden, which was neat because Annika's obviously done so much for our game. And my first match was against Annika, which is
Oh, wow.
is not great if you want to win, but we held our own. We took them 17 holes, but we didn't win the match. But my first 2 matches were actually against her in Sweden, which is definitely the most nervous I've ever been, and I don't anticipate ever being that nervous again.
That was definitely probably very special for you.
Yeah.
Something else that was probably very special. You won on the LPGA Tour in 2005. So just tell me, how special was it? Win on the LPGA Tour in 2005.
It was great. You go out there and you have goals and I thought I'd win more than one. I certainly wanted to win more than one, but if I was only going to win one and it not be a major, that's probably the place I'd want to win. Toledo, the state of Ohio was very good to me into my golf career. That's where I won my individual title, was at Ohio State.
Okay.
And then Toledo was the place that I had my first ever top 5, my first ever top 3, my first win. So I loved the golf course. I loved the town. I loved the people. I had 2 great families that I would stay with in housing. So if I was only going to win one and it wasn't a major, that'd certainly be the one. But it was a fun week. My husband was caddying for me and it was our first week working together. So, that was special. I mean, you can't hardly write that in the script, but it's the kind of golf course that I like. It's makes you hit shots both ways. You can't just hit one standard shot all day. So it requires a little creativity and precision, which favors me.
So you had a 16-year career on the LPGA Tour. So, what's the most memorable moment that you had about your time on the LPGA Tour?
I don't know if there's one. I mean, obviously winning and playing in Solheim Cups are great. I mean, honestly, probably my most memorable was I loved playing in the British Open. Just loved it. And I finished 3rd in a British Open in 2004. And going into that event, I was not playing well at all. And I was probably in danger of losing my card. And I went there and I finished 3rd and played really well. I mean, Karen Stupples won, but she started the final round with an eagle and an albatross. And so, she certainly went out and won the golf tournament. So I didn't feel like I lost it. But links golf just requires a little more, both physically and mentally. Like you have to hit different shots. And then you also have to accept good and bad bounces. So links golf requires a lot of a person on a lot of levels. And so when you can perform well in that situation, it's very rewarding.
So Coach, tell me, how did you get into college coaching, and what was the transition like for you going from playing professionally on the LPGA Tour to then now becoming a college head coach?
So I would say it happened accidentally. I never thought I would be a coach. It's not something I just didn't. When people would ask me, "Oh, you think you'll coach?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't want to deal with 10 of me." Like, sometimes players are high maintenance and um, just a lot of things. But I was accidentally ended up there. I did some volunteer work at the First Tee of Fort Worth, and I found that that was in a winter session. And when I went back out on the road on the LPGA, I kept thinking about those kids. And, I was going to work every day or going to volunteer thinking, oh, I'm really going to help them. I'm going to impact them. And they probably impacted me more than I impacted them. So I then knew that I wanted to be sort of, like a mentor, a coach, something in that arena. And the reason I went back into college golf was because I enjoyed my college golf experience, and I do like the competitiveness of it. So I do like being in a competitive environment. It's definitely a personality trait of mine. So that's how I ended up in college golf. It took me about 6 to maybe 9 months to actually get a job, of me
Okay.
just, calling and, is anything opening up? Because it's a kind of a closed world. Jobs are filled before they're posted. They're not really posted. They're filled by word of mouth. So I had to let people know I was interested in getting in coaching. And luckily, there were still a lot of people that I either played with, or when I played, they were coaching. So I did know a lot of people, but it still took time. It took about 9 months for me to actually get my foot in the door.
So you spent 5 seasons as an assistant coach at Clemson. So yeah, what was it like to be an assistant coach at Clemson for 5 seasons? And what did you learn most from your time at Clemson?
It was a really fun time to be there. I'm sure it still is a fun time, but like I think it was it was in the middle of my first year is when they won the national championship in football. So, it was certainly a fun time to be on campus. Every sport seemed to be trending well. And it was just exciting. It was just, I mean, you were just excited to go to work every day because there was such a high positive environment everywhere. So, that was fun. What I learned the most, I would say, is you have to meet the kids where they are. So they could come to practice at 1 in the afternoon, and you have no idea if they've had a bad exchange with their roommate that morning, or if a professor said something to them that they didn't take well. Like, you just really have to meet them where they are, because a lot of times they'll get to practice and you can tell that something's bothering them and they're just not mentally engaged and locked in. And it really, a lot of times, has nothing to do with you or with golf even. It's just something that happened earlier that day. So, and I also feel like you have to, if you want to invoke change, like, it's got to be their idea. So you've got to do a lot of question asking rather than saying, try this. You might say, what would happen if, we did this? So I feel like you have to come at it a little bit differently nowadays than say when I was playing college golf.
So now you've been the head women's golf coach at Florida Atlantic since July 2021. So what was it like for you when you got hired by Florida Atlantic to be their head women's golf coach in 2021?
Well, it's again great, but humbling. It's like you've been bestowed, this responsibility. Like, every decision now stops with me. So I was honored and humbled at the same time to be given this opportunity. And I'm very grateful every day that it was given to me, and that I still get to come to work here every day. So and it's fun, just kind of, when you're the head coach, you get to do everything. You get to try anything you want, like anything you want to try in practice, or just strategy wise, everything stops with you, which is, can be a blessing and a curse. But if I do like having that responsibility, like, it's on me. So, and I'm good with that.
Finally, final question. How much do you enjoy being a head women's golf coach, especially at Florida Atlantic?
Well, it's great. I mean, I came here for 2 reasons. I mean, my 2 biggest reasons of why this job was so appealing to me was quality of life. Like, I do like living in Florida, playing golf. I still play golf as much as I can. It's not daily, but I still love to be around the game, and I'm able to do it 12 months out of the year if I want to. And the other thing was the ability to recruit. So when you're able to get the kids to come here, the kind of kid that you want to coach and you want to go to work with every day, that makes your job that much more enjoyable. So those 2 things here make it a lot of fun.